U.S. military in 1991, during the first Persian Gulf War, had 2 million soldiers. Today, it has 1.3 million soldiers. So, in other words, if America ever fights a major war, it's going to have a lot of problems. And America doesn't even have manufacturing capacity anymore, okay? It doesn't have any factories anymore, which means that if it fights a war, it can't fight a war for a very long time. For every ship that America makes, China can make 300 ships. America no longer has this manufacturing capacity that it had during World War II. Shock and awe, where does this come from? It comes from one of the greatest disasters for America called the Vietnam War. So from 1965 until 1973, there was a civil war in Vietnam between North Vietnam, which was communist, and South Vietnam, which is basically US-controlled puppet state, okay? And America sent soldiers from 1965 to 1973 to protect South Vietnam from insurgents and rebels. And at the height of this war, 3 million US soldiers had to be deployed. And at the height, in 1969, 500,000 soldiers, US soldiers, were in country to fight against the rebels and the insurgents. 58,000 US soldiers died in this war. 3 million, at least 3 million Vietnamese died in this war. 2 million of them were civilians. Innocent civilians. Over 300,000 US soldiers were wounded, okay? They went home without legs, without arms, and they were traumatized. And this was an extremely controversial war in America because they were trying to fight the war using standard military doctrine, mass forces, right? So they instituted something called a draft. So if you were a young American, you had to go fight in this war in Vietnam. But you didn't know why you had to go fight this war. And chances are that you would either die or you would lose a body part in this war. So it became extremely unpopular in America. The other thing is that there were a lot of journalists in Vietnam during this time. And they were reporting on how America was killing Vietnamese for no reason. So the most famous story is something called the My Lai massacre, where American soldiers went into a Vietnamese village and killed everyone there, okay? 300 people, 400 people, okay? And this was happening actually quite a lot. So there was widespread anger and protest in America at this time, which ultimately forced America to withdraw in 1973. The US military was very angry about this war. Because the thing about generals is they don't like to lose war, okay? When they fight wars, they want to win at all costs. And they felt that they were betrayed by the country. They were fighting hard to maintain the American empire, to fight against communism. And this was bringing wealth, power, and prestige to America. But the American people, the American politicians, the American democracy, republic, refused to make the necessary sacrifices in order to maintain this empire. And so many American generals felt betrayed by what happened in Vietnam, okay? Now, there's a very famous incident during this war called the Pentagon Papers in 1971. In 1971, a group of American analysts, okay? These are military analysts working in the military. They secretly got together and they tried to compose a secret history of the Vietnam War. And this is called the Pentagon Papers.